Hey Fly Tires, welcome back. My name is Matt, and the pattern I'm going to be showing you tonight is from Charlie Craven's Tying Nymphs book. It is called the Biot Emerger. This one's in black. It's not too difficult to tie. It uses a turkey biot. That's about the only difficult part of it, but I think you're going to enjoy it, so let's get started. As always, I will explain the materials as I go and put the recipe in the description. So starting off, I've got a size 16 barbless standard Nymph wet fly hook. I'm going to lay down a base of black thread. I'm using 70 denier UTC. Now when you've got that back to the bend or where the barb of the hook would probably be, get your turkey biot. Now this body is a black turkey biot. It's a little bit trickier than tying with goose biots, but it's not terribly difficult. So take a look at your biot, and there's a thick side and then a side with no ridge on it. So you'll want to start with the ridged side down. Now if we tied it in right there and then started wrapping, we'd be wrapping a fairly brittle section of the biot. So what I'll do, I will trim off just a little bit so that I'm catching it in and I'm starting my wraps with it a little bit thicker. Now per Charlie's guidance and instructions, start it with the thick side down closer to the hook. And that does make it just a little bit easier, and I'll show you why in a minute. So when you get this caught in, bring your thread all the way up to the eye. Don't leave any space really behind the eye. Now you'll need your hackle pliers for this because you're trying to wrap a body out of something that's about an inch long and pretty slippery. So what you do, first wrap is the most important to get right. After that, everything's easy. So take your first wrap and make sure that the ridged edge of that biot is in the trailing edge. That's what's going to create our rib. Now you can see that. So if you didn't get that right, then just pull it off, flip it over, and start over. Not too late to do that. And on this size 16 hook, you'll probably get about 4 wraps, and it will create about 4 of those biot ridges there. Evenly spaced if you can make it happen. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 4 to 5 ridges right there, and you'll see why we brought the thread all the way at the top, because by now the biot is pretty thick and you're trying to catch in a pretty thick piece of feather right here. So a couple wraps to lock that in, and we'll snip this off. And just a couple more thread wraps to secure that. Take it back right there. That's where we're going to tie in our thorax. So a little bit of wax, doesn't take much. We're not putting a whole lot of dubbing on here. I'm using black superfine, just the smallest little tufts of it right here. I'm going to dub maybe an inch worth on this thread. And it's pretty thin. In this zoomed in view of the camera, it looks like a pretty thick noodle, but it's not. It's quite small. But it doesn't take much. So got a little bit right there. You could probably go a little bit thicker, but I'm going to leave what we've got right there. That superfine is sticking out on me. Now for the hackle, just dark or black. This is a black biot emerger, so you'll want to use a dark feather. Any hen soft hackle you got, I'm using partridge right here. I think it's just a little bit easier. It's a little bit more brittle, but I think it's a little easier to tie, and it looks just a little bit better in the end. So I will wrap a couple of wraps to get that in, fold that stem back over on itself, a couple more wraps to really secure it, and then I will trim that stem off. It's a pretty brittle feather, and you don't have a whole lot to work with. So you'll need your hackle pliers again. It looks like that's a pretty long feather, but believe me, it's not. There's my finger. This feather is barely over a 1/2 inch long, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And you're only going to be able to get the smallest bit of it in your hackle pliers. So wrap this gently. Don't put much tension on it. We're going to get 2 full wraps. Try to pull it back if you can. If not, don't worry about it. We can get these feathers laying how we want when we're building our head. But I think that's going to look okay right there. Couple of turns to get that locked in. We'll snip off this excess. And let's push this back and wrap up the head. So a couple of locking wraps. I got the hackle where I want. I'm going to go back up to the eye. Might need to spin my thread to get it a little tighter so it's not flattening out on me. And I'm going to build a ramp back up here just to finish off the head. And I've got it right there. That's where I'm going to put my whip finish. Right in front of that hackle, right behind the head I've built. Be careful not to capture any of these hackle fibers in your whip finish or you will end up pushing them forward. Which I do plenty of times. And then you just have to trim them. So reach in here, as close as you can get it. Trim your thread. So there you have it, folks. Black Biot emerger from Charlie Craven's Tying Nymphs. Not too difficult to tie. If you've never worked with turkey biots, it's a little bit more challenging than goose biots, but it's not that tough. So as always, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I hope you learned something or at least enjoyed it. So thanks again, folks. We'll see you next time.